Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I see we are 15 minutes behind our time, but we will try to stick to our 1 hour. We are going to run this session for 60 minutes. Now, in the interest of time, we are not going to be reading the resumes of each of these people, because that will take the time of the content. But just to say to you, you have heard the main MC for today announcing them. I will just quickly perhaps run through right to my nearest would be Mr. Gono. He is the president of the Chamber of Mines of Zimbabwe. Mr. Sokwani Chilembo is the CEO of the Chamber of Mines of Zambia. Mr. Benjamin Mchwampaka is the CEO of the Chamber of Mines of Tanzania. And to my extreme left is, I think, senior partner, if I'm not mistaken, from Wentzel, Dr. Mbere. I don't know, I say Mbere or Mbere.
Mbere is right.
Mbere, yeah, thank you very much. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask each person 2 questions that specifically relates to them, and give them at least 5 minutes to respond to my question. And then we will run another session of 2 questions, the last question. Hopefully our time will almost be up. We will open the last 5 minutes for any other question that people will be itching to ask. Let me start in the middle. I'm not going to go into this order of asking questions. Let me start with Zambia. Zambia is, by the way, also the CEO of Zambia is the president of Mining Industry Association of Southern Africa. Mr. Sokwani, can you share the policy challenges you are experiencing, and how is the private sector supporting government in dealing with some of these challenges?
Right. Thanks very much, Mr. Mabena. Zambia has historically faced a lot of policy instability over the years, but in 2021, the administration that came into office forged a vision to try and get the country to focus on growth. As a result, most of the issues that have historically plagued us as regards policy have been put to bed. We used to have a lot of fiscal policy instability that was really driven by a perception that the industry wasn't paying its fair share. That's on the fiscal side. We had a similar situation as regards electricity tariffs as well, because there was a perception that the industry, again, was not paying its fair share and being subsidized by the general public. As a result of this new approach, we've seen on the electricity tariff side a arm's length benchmarking cost of service study that has shown that the industry was paying a premium. We've had government itself do estimates of how much the policy instability has cost us in terms of growth over the years, and it runs into the many billions of dollars. So there is a congruence now between government and industry that the priority has to be on growth. And what we are doing as a sector is engaging very vigorously with government to ensure that there is a very high engagement communication process through which we frankly and sometimes abrasively come to a place which accommodates both the growth interests of government and the sector, and also the business opportunity return opportunity that industry sees. So the government was also very wise in ensuring that there's a formal framework to do this, as opposed to before when we'd have ad hoc meetings. We now have what's called a public-private dialogue forum. It's a quarterly forum at which any pressing matters are presented to a committee co-chaired by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Mines, the equivalent of the Director General here in South Africa, and the President of the Chamber. And if there is failure to agree at that level, then the matter is escalated to a National Steering Committee meeting that happens quarterly as well and is chaired by the head of state. So we have an escalation process, and it's worked quite well so far in terms of keeping the country on track. There are pieces of legislation under consideration, but this process is leading to them being made more in line with international expectations and maintaining the competitiveness of our country. So in a nutshell, that's what we are doing. These are the challenges we've faced. This is how we've begun to deal with them. And this is the framework we intend to lay for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me go to my colleague from Tanzania. Tanzania is very unique for its small-scale miners. We've just had a very nice presentation from Tanzania, but from STAMICO, and I think I'm going to now allow the CEO of the Chamber of Mines to actually just give his perspectives on, to share the policies or the policy challenges that the private sector is experiencing, especially from a small-scale point of view on critical minerals, and what the private sector is doing to support government in addressing these challenges.
Thank you, Mr. Mabena. Yeah, like you said, on the small-scale mining side, Tanzania, I think, has done a commendable job as you compare to other countries. I know in other countries, small-scale miners and artisanal are taken like criminals. They're unheard of. They don't want to hear about them. But with the case of Tanzania, we said the vote of the people who are involved in between 3 to 7 million, direct and indirectly, there's no way we can ignore the subsector. So from the policy point of view, there is a specific policy statement which says that the country will promote and support the development with small-scale mining. And from the policy, we now, put it into the legal framework, whereby the Mining Act has explicitly set, put some, clauses specific to small-scale mining development, whereby there are special licenses which are dedicated to small-scale miners. We call them primary mining licenses, and these are exclusively for the Tanzanians only. No foreigners are allowed to participate in that. And then even in the structure of the ministry, there is a special section led by the Assistant Commissioner who is responsible for small-scale mining development. And further that, in every district where mines are concentrated, there is an office, we call it the Resident Mines Office, equipped with full-fledged, mining experts from the technicians, geologists, mining engineers, gemologists, to make sure that they are rendering support to small-scale miners, to make sure that they are giving them extension services in terms of geology, knowledge, mining, processing, and such kind of things, to make sure that this subsector is currently growing. And to culminate that one, we have specifically, the government has assigned the State Mining Corporation to be the caretaker, to make sure that the technological aspect and support are being rendered to the artisanal and the small-scale miners. And they have also established the centers of excellence. We have 3, and 1 more is coming in, whereby the small-scale miners will go there to learn different exploration, mining, and the processing technologies. And they even take their gold ore, for example, for processing at a very reasonable cost. All these are there to make sure that the small-scale miners are doing the activities, in a more environmentally health and safety manner. Now, looking exactly on the critical minerals, small-scale miners are not in there very much. They're mostly in gold, gemstone, building materials, and industrial minerals. But on the critical minerals, because of the technology, requirement, some few have ventured into nickel, and on a specific area whereby Tanzanite is located in Merelani, Tanzanite occurs associated with the graphite. So while mining Tanzanite, they produce a lot of graphite heaps, but by then, graphite was not as critical as it is today. So they've been, putting dumps and dumps of graphite, but now that graphite has become a critical commodity, they're trying to venture into it to see how they can recover, but they are beset by the technology. And that's why now the government is trying to come in collaboration with the private sector. And we have actually drafted what we call the critical minerals strategy in Tanzania, whereby now we are trying to put in what can be done in terms of technology advancement, in terms of capacity building, to make sure that even the Tanzanians now do participate even in the critical minerals space. It's still a draft. We have identified 28 critical minerals according to our country's, requirements, but we have also identified 18 strategic minerals. You can see strategic minerals do vary from a country to country, depending on the economics of the country, what is required to stimulate the, in-country domestic industries, and so on and so forth. So, for example, in Tanzania, for the strategic mineral side, gold is number one because it accounts for 80% of all the revenues from exports and even domestic. So on the strategic minerals list, you'll find gold and the others, about 18 of them currently, but on the critical mineral side, we have about 28 minerals that have been identified. So the fact that we are drafting now the critical minerals strategy, I think most of the technological issues that are facing our Tanzanian nationals who are involved in mining, they will be able also to be equipped to also venture into critical minerals.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I like the way the private sector is cooperating with the with government in terms of supporting small-scale miners, because when you look at a number of countries, especially in the sub-region and in the SADC in particular, small-scale miners are a curse to the industry. And I think Tanzania is a model where we could say, how do we work together to make them part of the family? And because they are also contributing to the GDP of the country. Let's now move to Zimbabwe. But my first question to you, sir, is a straightforward, simple question. Can you outline for us the opportunities in Zimbabwe for critical minerals landscape?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mabena. Thank you very much, guests here present. I'll just be very brief because most of these things have been highlighted by other presenters. But specifically for Zimbabwe, the opportunities really rest on the endowment of minerals which we have. As has been said by our colleague from Sudan and our colleague from Tanzania, Zimbabwe is endowed by a lot of minerals, including those now which we regard as critical minerals. This is so because geologically, it is composed of what we call the greenstone areas. These greenstone areas, they host most of the precious metals, which are gold, platinum, and silver, and also base metals, which then include the critical minerals. This is your nickel, your copper, your cobalt. And in the same token, they also host in what we then call the associated metamorphic belts, the pegmatite minerals, which are lithium, tantalum, and many other associated minerals like iridium and the rest. Together, in the geological aspect, we've got what we call the Great Dike of Zimbabwe. This is a geological phenomenon. And for your own information, if you go to space, you'll be able to identify this geological phenomenon. It straddles right at the center of Zimbabwe, almost 550 kilometers along its entire strike. And its widest part is about 12 kilometers. In it, it hosts a lot of platinum group metals, and is second only to South Africa in terms of the resource endowment. This is where you get your platinum, your palladium, and associated nickel, copper, cobalt, which are all critical for what we now call the transition from fossil fuel into the green energy. So this is where there is a huge opportunity. At the same token, we have not systematically explored the entire country with regards to exploration. So the opportunity arises to invest in systematic exploration, in specifically focusing on the critical minerals. Remember, if you look the past 2 years in Africa, Zimbabwe has been one of the key countries to supply lithium to the international markets without any systematic exploration. I think these deposits are really world-class. You talk of the Bikita minerals, the Kamativi minerals. Just to give you a simple example, the Bikita minerals on its own is projected to produce about 300,000 tons of spodumene concentrates per annum and 480,000 tons of petalite concentrate per annum, only one. And if you could put the numbers in perspective, when this was planned in 2022, some 2-3 years ago, the lithium concentrate were going at roughly around 7,500 to 8,000 US dollars per ton. And one single mine producing plus or minus 7,800. That is significant, that is billions of dollars. So there rests the opportunity. Within these critical minerals, we have realized that history has been that Africa, Zimbabwe, not served. We've been supplying minerals as raw materials, not beneficiated. So there's an opportunity now to jump and make sure that we are involved in the value additions. At the same token, we also need to see the value chains, the linkages associated with this value addition. We now realize, actually I need to comment what I have heard, if this is very true, about DRC, where there is now not just export of copper concentrate, but now of copper cathode. And also the dimension where there's a relationship between Zambia and the DRC to produce the battery. We need to concentrate on the middle to upper value chains where there's a lot of value. This value just doesn't come in the form of money or revenues. Actually, it's in the employment of our people, impacting the skill set to our people. As we all are aware, Africa has got the youngest population. And our key challenge now, facing all our governments, and Zimbabwe included, is the education of this young population, where they need the skill so that they will make a future contribution to the development of our country. Another opportunity within the critical minerals is in the refinery, the end game, where we say in Zimbabwe, we've been beneficiating to lithium concentrates. Now we need to produce the lithium carbonate or lithium hydroxide equivalent. But there's a narrative now, there's an agreement now between Chamber of Mines members, which are the private sector producers, and the government, where we need to produce lithium sulfate. Also, under the platinum group metals, we have already agreed with government on a roadmap where we use excess capacity in one of the miners or the members. So these other companies will come and feed the feedstock into that particular refining asset. So there's opportunity where we cannot get funding to capacitate or to produce this refining to come and actually invest in those particular areas. There's also issues to do with the upstream sectors, that is the engineering sector, where we produce the equipment required to do the mining. We all talk of the mining, but for us to be able to be efficient, to be able to supply seamlessly without disruptions, we really need to have those equipment. More so, coming from our own, we understand South Africa is doing quite a lot in terms of original equipment manufacturing, but we call other countries, Zimbabwe included, so that we produce the equipment required for the mining. It also goes to research and development, the laboratories. We need to have capability for us to be able to analyze what we produce. We need to have capability to support the exploration functions through well-equipped laboratories. But before I finish my presentation, I think I'm taking too long.
Yes.
There's another very key element which I also need to talk about Zimbabwe, is the rare earth element. We've not systematically explored or mined that, but there's huge scope because we have what we call the ring complexes or carbonatites, where these host phosphate minerals for the production of fertilizer. We've got the Shawa, Chishanya, we've got also some to the north, some to the south. So exploration funding, investment into exploration is very key, and there's an opportunity for that. I think I will rest on this one.
Thank you. I can see you can talk the whole night about this. Thank you very much. It's just a demonstration of, to the extent to which Zimbabwe is endowed with these critical minerals that are so needed by the globe. Now we've been listening to three presentations of what's happening in each country. What I'm keen on is to try, just these three countries are neighbors to one another. Just these three countries. And this country or this region has an opportunity for collaboration. I would like to get somebody from outside in Dr. Mbere because Wentzel is actually a service provider to some of the members of mines of these chambers of mines. And they've got an opportunity to see opportunities for collaboration. So, Dr. Mbere, how do you think the private sector, the private mining industry can provide regional collaboration for critical minerals with specific focus on value chains and value addition?
Good afternoon, everyone. I think to start off with, I would like to start off with infrastructure. We need companies to come together and jointly invest in cross-border infrastructure such as railway, ports, and processing facilities. And this shared infrastructure will reduce costs. And as we all know, investment in such infrastructure is you need quite a lot of money to do that. And we have seen initiatives in the region, especially for landlocked countries and also the mining companies that are further away from the port, coming together to try and see if they can exploit some of the potential corridors that are from an infrastructural investment. And you've got with the one that I can think of, you've got the Mamabula-Lipalale rail that is supposed to be linking a landlocked Botswana into the ports of either Maputo or Durban or Richards Bay. So there needs to be a coming together, and this no one mining company can invest in such infrastructure. It needs a coming together of various mining companies. Sometimes this can be on a basis of industry bodies that are like the Ore User Forum coming together, or the chrome industries coming together, or whatever industries, the coal industries, in investing in the corridor. Secondly, partnership on regional processing and refining facilities. So, and this can be from a broadly regional, or even at a local, where you get your juniors, the seniors, who may have the processing facilities, helping the juniors in processing, because in processing the product, you get a much better value product that can be then exported. So if you have these, and it's quite easy to sort of sort these, set these up, because you'll have service agreements between the seniors and the juniors, and then even transporting, that can be also sorted out with the seniors, assist the juniors in transporting out into the coast. And this can also be on a regional level, where you have landlocked countries sort of coming through into the bigger processing facilities wherever they are, and then being transported for export. And we need also in standardizing, practicing, and harmonizing standards, it's from an advocacy perspective. If you group together as the mining sector and advocate for some of these standardization and harmonization of standards, you will get a lot further than if one company, and at a regional level as well. You have to, on a local country level, we have seen how the advocacy that has come from, I'll mention South Africa, from the mining sector, especially where Transnet is involved in trying to fix, all the poor delivery that's come out of that. And it took, the National Logistics Crisis Committee, which was, the membership of that was government and the mining sector, trying to come up with ideas to put it right. So from a regional level, there's SADC that can be used in order to advocate for that. And then, of course, leveraging on special economic zone, cross-border special economic zones. And of course, that would need sort of harmonization of legislation, and also ensuring that the value chain, if you are like cobalt and copper, as in Zambia and DRC, who have come together from a cross-border perspective for batteries, then the value chain is then sort of built up that way. And then just, I can't stress how much sort of advocacy that needs to happen, not from a government perspective, not just from a chamber, the gentlemen here. It has to involve the CEOs of the companies. They can't do it on their own. They need CEOs of the companies coming together with you and advocating and putting pressure on the governments and the SADC community, especially at this, SADC, the mining, and following that protocol, because you've got a protocol that that's supposed to assist you in actually getting all these sort of aligned, all the standards aligned.
Thank you very much. The region has an opportunity. We've been fragmented for so long, but we have an opportunity to actually work together and grow together, and not leave one another behind. And what Dr. Mbere is actually highlighting is the importance of advocacy and lobbying amongst ourselves as member states of the region to ensure that the industry, especially now that the whole world is looking at us, because we have these critical minerals, we need to move away from, this is my jurisdiction, I'll do what I want. If we stuck on that, by the time this boom passes, we will be saying, what happened? It will be gone. But anyway, let me move on to my second question to each of the members. Let me start again with Zambia. Mr. Chilembo, can you outline the critical minerals that Zambia is endowed with? And how is private sector leveraging these critical minerals to support value addition for growth in Zambia?
Thanks very much. Zambia's endowment comes geologically from about 4 zones. We do have an occurrence that's a very big oddity, in that we have an asset just south of Lusaka, which sounds very much like an extension of the Great Dike, and that's endowed with your nickel, palladium, platinum, cobalt, copper. And in the south of the country as well, we do have a lithium occurrence that is analogous to the area that hosts the Arcadia mine in Zimbabwe. We also have a significant uranium endowment around on the shores of Lake Kariba. And from the capital, Lusaka, going north and up, following the railway into Tanzania, and also the same structure resurfaces and runs basically parallel to the Congo River, partway up. We have a very consistent occurrence of the zinc and manganese as well. And to the east, we have a geological feature which is similar to that which has yielded the biggest graphite deposit in the world, in Malawi. And what Zambia is primarily known for is copper and its associated critical minerals, cobalt and the like, which are found on the traditional copper belt that is an extension of the one that we share with the Congo. And it has a particular feature called the Ulithilian arc, which arcs up towards Angola and then back down under the Kalahari towards Botswana, which holds a lot of cobalt, nickel as well. And it also has interesting iron, copper, gold deposits, some that can be associated with uranium. So in addition to this, we also have rare earth occurrences near Lusaka and up near the border with Tanzania. And what industry is doing is really through the process I outlined earlier on about the public-private engagement. For all these things to happen, we need capital to come in and de-risk these opportunities. One of the things that the industry has also done is advocated through the traditional budget process. 3 years ago, as an industry, we urged government to increase its funding to our parent Ministry of Mines 20-fold. When we made the suggestion, obviously everyone's looking around and thinking, what's going on with these guys? Not only that, but we are miners who are asking to be greater regulated at the same time. The reason for this is because historically, the Ministry of Mines has been invested in as a consequence of the nationalization period. And so it lagged behind industry and did not grow in terms of resourcing and capacitation over time. We argued for this. Government has gotten about halfway there. But even at halfway there, we now have government itself investing over $90 million in primary aerial geophysical explorations, so that the endowments I've just spoken of can be properly located, and then you can have the government where it takes a preference doing the primary de-risking, so that you can have second-round private sector investors to develop some of those areas, while in others, the private sector will move ahead. This is what we are looking to try and build and maintain, because all of these things only work if we have that policy stability and consistency that, most importantly, can survive a price downturn. Because if you're going to put in very egregious policies, they might work while prices are good. Copper's the new oil right now. But what happens when you have a 70s type crisis in copper? Will you maintain an environment that will continue to attract exploration even through the trough? Those countries that have done this successfully over time, especially in South America, Peru and Chile, being very good examples, have grown in every aspect of life, as measured by the Human Development Indices. So these are the arguments that we put across to government, and our hope is that working together, we can also begin to ensure that, apart from foreign capital that's coming in, some local capital can be applied as well, in parallel with what our members are plowing back into the mining sector, so that it can grow in an inclusive fashion. Because part of the reason for the instability is the industry has traditionally been perceived as an enclave one, but I think if there's a bigger mix of participation, not just from the foreign players, from all points on the map, but from local players as well, then that will add to the stability and attractiveness of the destination, so that people know when you come through, you'll have 20 years of consistency in which to fully bring that resource to production. Yeah, so that's basically what we're doing.
Thank you. I suppose there are some answers on some of the questions I'm going to ask you, Mr. Mchwampaka, have been addressed by Stamiko, but I will still ask it anyway, just to get it from your perspectives. What are the investment challenges in Tanzania specifically, especially with regard to critical minerals? What are the challenges and opportunities for growing critical minerals in Tanzania? And how does the private sector envisage collaboration with its member states? I'm going back to Dr. Mbere. How do you see working, especially from an investment point of view, how do you see Tanzania working with its member states, especially all those who belong to MEASA, in ensuring that we grow this economy together?
Thank you, Vusi. I think in terms of endowment, my colleague from Stamiko has said it all. You have seen the various projects which are almost, waiting to finalize financial mobilization so that they can start mine development. For example, the bigger one, the nickel, which is under Life Zone Metals, and the BHP, which is near Burundi. The gentleman has said it clearly. That one is a huge project. It's on the mine alone, it's about $1.6 billion, but they have also the refinery facility, the multi-metal refinery, which is about $600 million. So I think that one, when it kicks off, it will make a huge impact in the economy. But also on graphite front, we have over 6 or so projects which are ready to go. They have been mentioned clearly. I think when they all come into production by end of next year, Tanzania could stand at number 3 in terms of graphite production in Africa, and he said even 6th in the world. So in terms of endowment, we have a lot. We have lithium as well. We have rare earth metals. We have heavy mineral sands. We have manganese. The number is big, and that's why I said we have actually, from our strategy, identified about 28 of the critical minerals that the government will embark on to make sure that they are developed. Now, in terms of challenges, one of the challenges is the lack of adequate geoscientific information. If you heard when my colleague was presenting, our country is mapped only 16% to the tune of high resolution geophysical survey. So we still have a long way to go. But now the country has come up with the Vision 2030, whereby we envisage by the year 2030, at least 50% of the country surveyed at a scale of high resolution, And we believe by doing that, we have a lot of information to package to attract investment where the critical minerals actually are, Because in order to attract investment, you have at least to give them the primary information on the endowment that you have. So that's the area whereby we have to work on and make sure that we are addressing that challenge. Another good opportunity is the effort the government has done in terms of infrastructure. You have heard of the Julius Nyerere hydropower project, which is about 2.15 gigawatts of electricity. We think if it's running at full capacity through the southern power pool connection, we can even support our neighboring country like Zambia, who are currently struggling with the power. Those are the sort of collaboration we are looking at. But also the infrastructure. We have embarked on a very powerful, standard gauge railway from Dar es Salaam all the way to Mwanza as phase 1. And then phase 2 will connect the neighboring countries in the Great Lakes. That will do a lot of stimulation in terms of supporting the mining projects. And those are most of the areas where the critical minerals are located. Also on the road networks, we have made sure that the country is connected with all tarmac or all the year around passable, trunk roads. So at least most of the projects which were seen to be non-viable by then, because of the infrastructural, predicament, they are now becoming economical. Coming to the issue of a collaboration, like my colleague has said, I think she, pointed out very clearly that we need to cooperate each other, harmonize our policies, and see if we can sort of complement each other instead of competing in isolation. You see, we should leverage on each country's, comparative advantage. For example, we are talking about the multi-metal refinery. It will be having a huge capacity. So instead of each country to try and, establish their own processing facility, we could see how we can utilize the existing facility in one of the member states so that we can process our ores within the member states. The same applies to research, technologies, pulling together resources to do the infrastructural development. You have been hearing about the Lobito corridor and the Tazara. That's the kind of linkage that we are looking at. So I think as African continent and the sub-region in our member states, we have a lot of potential if we can collaborate, if we can put our legal and fiscal framework right to attract more investment, and more importantly, the private and the public sector to sit together and discuss issues objectively. For example, in my country, we have what we call the mining breakfast briefing, whereby the Chamber of Mines and the ministry and the other government organs would sit together and see what are the challenges and what can we do together to sort of address them. And that has been bringing a lot of solutions to the challenges that we are having. And this year we are having the Tanzania Mining and the Investment Conference, which is jointly organized by the Tanzania Chamber of Mines and the Ministry of Minerals. Those are the kind of collaboration between the private and the public which could drive our economies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wish, and I'm hoping the CEO of Stamico invited people who are attending this session to come, and I hope that this kind of session needs to be attended by all member states to go and share amongst themselves and how they could collaborate and work together. It doesn't become a country-specific thing and everything that actually leaves the country talking to itself. But as a country, we should be talking amongst, as a region, we must be talking to one another and how we can leverage from one another to grow this industry and therefore grow jobs, you know, and grow our economies. Let me go to the president of Zimbabwe, of the Chamber of Mines of Zimbabwe. And I want you to specifically talk to the private sector. You know, how is the private sector supporting government to promote development and growth of critical minerals in your country? You might have spoken to some of them, but we would like to hear more specifically about your own initiatives as a private sector, obviously working with government.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vusi, but I will be very brief. I know it's getting long. As Chamber of Mines, we work very closely with government. Government is our key stakeholder. The first thing in terms of development of critical minerals, you need to develop a very good policy which can guide those who want to invest in that particular sector. By the same token, how is this happening? This is happening through the Mines and Mineral Act. Currently, we are involved in the amendment of the old Mines and Mineral Act, and the Chamber of Mines initiative is that we've actually brought in our members, did most of our consultations, took all those recommendations to government so that they can incorporate those in the amendment of the Mines and Minerals. We are very happy to report that the majority of our proposals were actually taken up in the amendment of the Mines and Minerals, and it's just now left, you know, to finalize the bill so that it can be put before Parliament and become an act. Then the other thing is what is constraining the development of the critical sector in mining at large. I think two critical issues which I need to focus on. The first thing is power, then the second thing is capital investment. Power, what we've done, we've got a challenge ourselves, of course, with our brothers, Zambia, where we are going through a drought, so the generation of power is quite low at Kariba. So Chamber is made collaborations with other private sector players, which I will call the intensive user group, where we import power and actually give that power to most of our members. And this is happened in such a way that that imported power is even coming at a lower tariff than the power which we're getting from the government, the regulator. So really, this is very good in terms of development. I also go to the issue of capital. We've realized that it's not so easy, I think for certain other unique reasons for Zimbabwe, to mobilize international capital and come into our country. We've also influenced government actually to capacitate or increase production in such a way that we domestically raise funding, and under such a pressure, government enacted a policy where they chose a certain jurisdiction where you can actually trade in specific US dollars, which is the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So we're not just waiting to get funding coming from outside, But besides the mobilization of domestic, we are also including our own people to participate within that particular sector. So we're very happy as Chamber really to do that. I think these are some of the key things which we are assisting government, that is on the policy front, that is also on the power front, and also on this capital mobilization. I think for now, I'll end for that.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm asking these questions specifically just to try to ask our members or the private sector to say, it's enough, it's good to say the government cannot assist us, or criticize the government for not giving us the services that they. But when our governments are experiencing constraints, what are we doing to assist them as private sectors? So that is basically why I'm asking this question. Dr. Mbere, I was jumping from policy to investment with each of the members. And what I'd like to ask you to do for us now is look at what do you think are cross-cutting regional policies that could make collaboration possible in the region? If you could just, from your thinking and your understanding of the region, what are these policies that would help us to grow the region, if you like?
I just want to start off by saying I think we need to adopt a sort of like a Pan-African mindset or SADC mindset when we go into these sort of investment opportunities, so that we look at the region as a whole as opposed to individual countries. And when you look at the regional as a whole, you look at, for instance, standardizing custom and border control policies. That if you drive from Johannesburg through Botswana to Zambia, you will see at the border posts the number of trucks that are stuck there for a number of days that are going to the DRC, right? So I can't understand for the life of me why they have to be stuck there for so many days, because they carry equipment and all sorts of material that is needed for the mining sector as well. So I don't understand why we are still there in today's world. Secondly, you spoke about skills development and labor mobility. The fact that we are short in skills in the different, and some of the countries have more skills than others. Why we can't then allow like cross-border skills sharing, and we're so protectionist when we come to immigration, especially with your labor permits, work permits and things like that. I just don't understand why we are so protectionist in the SADC region when it comes to things like that. And regional permitting and licensing frameworks, surely that should it should be seamless for a company that is in different jurisdictions in the SADC region to understand that the same permitting or licensing framework will apply in the different SADC countries. And lastly, you spoke about data sharing and digital infrastructure. I mean, some of the countries have better, they are more advanced in this than others. And why we cannot seamless sharing of this within the region. I remember the gentleman from Sudan saying they asked for assistance from South Africa, and they still haven't received it on the data for Sudan. And I don't understand why we are not able to share that data and even align the standards in terms of using that data and sharing that data. I just thought, let me highlight those, because for me, those are quite, I mean, apart from tax and royalty frameworks and the ESG standards, I mean, those are, that can be easily done because we use the same international standards, and our regional sourcing requirements or, standards are going to be the same for all of us. And your environmental, laws and regulations are going to be the same when we, export all this to the different jurisdictions that we export our products to. So all that, we spend less money in developing these policies if we share them, and I think we're not doing enough. I may be wrong. I'm not. I don't think we're doing enough in actually making sure that we share all we need to share.
Thank you. Just this fragmentation or this non-standardization or harmony, just one example, you talked about permitting, and it spoke something in one of the member states in Southern Africa. Permitting takes 90 days for you to get a permit. If you go to Botswana, to go to Madagascar, it takes forever. If you go to South Africa, it takes over 300 days.
It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Aren't we shooting ourselves on the foot?
Oh, yes, we are.
And it creates room for corruption as well.
Yeah, and if we're to have a harmony amongst the region, to say, obviously we need to maintain the uniqueness of each member state, if you like. We can't just sort of throw it away, forget about it. But if there's graphite in Malawi and there's graphite in Tanzania, okay, and we've got investors who are wanting graphite, why is it taking us more than 90 days in each of these countries to get graphite permits? Those are some of the cross-cutting policies that we should be looking at for harmonization purposes. If you look at, you spoke about royalties, why is it in one country, the royalty is based on gross revenue at a ridiculous rate, and in another country is based on net income at reasonable rates?
And deductible.
So those are some of the, if the difference is more than 5%, then it means we are saying to one country, remain there without investors, because the country with less, all the investors are going to run there, and we are going to be worried. Why is this country attracting? Right now, Namibia, because of its policies, is actually attracting the most investors in the mining sector than most of the mining jurisdictions in the region. Yeah. Because of the policies that they have done. And why are we not going to learn from what are they doing so that we can all share this slice of investors? Anyway, let me use the last 5 minutes to call for questions if there are any. There is then there are more than 5 questions. I thought I would get only one. Let's start there, that the first hand came from that side, and then we'll go to the middle. Somewhere here, there are 2 or 3 hands here in the middle.
Yeah, for me, thanks, moderator. I think for me, it's just more of a comment. I think one word that is very common or frequent as we discuss the transition, critical minerals and so on, is depoliticizing or decolonizing, the means of production and so on, basically the entire value chain. And I think that's something we may need to begin to pay a little more attention, because when I listen to the panel, including your last comment, statement, it speaks to us as a region to have held on to the colonial system. But also that is a thought that you can again entertain when you're looking at the geological data, the geological mapping. They also seem to follow the colonial maps. So part of the software, part of the narrative that we need to change perhaps is how we are interpreting the colonial systems into our means of production. And then the second comment perhaps is just maybe the organizers. And I think I take a leaf from one of the speakers who spoke about how joint collaboration between government, joint advocacy essentially. And I thought that perhaps for us in Zambia, I think we're working very well among the three sectors, the three actors, civil society, government and the private sector, facilitated by the EITI multi-stakeholder framework and the MSG groups and so on. I thought I could just add those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Somewhere in the middle, there were hands. I saw two hands. Yes, sir.
Cool. Thank you, Chair. Much appreciated. One question directed towards Tanzania. There's been a lot of talk about the Nyerere hydropower project, previously known as the Stigler's Gorge project. It seems to me, with respect, that expecting 2.1 gigawatts from that without reliable water flow through the Rufiji River, that's not likely to come to fruition, nor is the national transmission grid actually sufficiently established to distribute power from that zone. So I wanted a comment on that, please. And then secondly, to the president of Zimbabwe's Chamber of Mines. Zimbabwe is a difficult place to invest. My question there is around security of tenure under Mnangagwa. When he came to power, he said Zimbabwe is open for business. Plenty of miners who've attempted to establish mining operations in Zim have faced expropriation risk. So please, could you speak to that as well? Thank you.
Okay, that was a comment. Can I take another question? The gentleman there? It's fine. There's here in front, done.
Thank you very much. My name is Kudaman Jojo from PowerShift Africa think tank. Thanks so much for your contributions. My question is on this issue of collaboration, which I think is extremely important, specifically mentioning the sharing of infrastructure. Practically speaking, from a government point of view, I'm a think tank, so we speak to governments a lot. They want to control where the refineries are, right? So for example, the PGM industry, the Zimbabwean government was trying to get refineries into Zimbabwe rather than it being sent, rather than the platinum being sent to South Africa. So there's a practical question there that in terms of the service agreements, and I think maybe Dr. Nomsa can answer this, are there ways where there can be profit sharing that's a bit more equitable and not based on where the refinery is, so that there's a better chance of collaboration between mines and countries at a tax collection base point of view? Thank you.
The last question at the back.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Farai Mtondoro from the African Institute of Environmental Law. My question is on the reactive nature of our policies. We saw in Zim banning export of raw lithium. Namibia followed suit. And Dr. Mbere, you're speaking about a more forward-looking policy perspective. We have the green mineral strategy in place. What is the private sector seeing? Are they seeing opportunities for a regional valuation model? Do they input into that? How can they make it move so that it has legs?
Thank you very much. I'll start with the president of the Chamber of Mines of Zim, and then I'll go to Dr. Mbere.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think I will touch on what has been directed at me. I think it was to do with the perception of investing in Zimbabwe. I'm very happy that it is perception. I think I will take a little bit longer. I just want to explain this. True, there are other investors who have faced certain challenges, and the government is aware that such challenges exist. To streamline that, they've also, to their credit, that is the government credit, they've actually formulated what they call the Zimbabwe, ZIDA, Zimbabwe Investment Development Authority, where every investor actually goes there, and whatever the investor wants to know in terms of information, in terms of everything, that's where it is done. And if there is one person or one company which has got issues to do with withdrawing or benefiting from investment, that is the board for them to go and see. However, I want to quickly allay some of these fears. In Zimbabwe, we've got a lot of South African companies investing in Zimbabwe, some of which are very large, like Zimplats, which are billion-dollar investments. They've been there for the past 24, 25 years investing. We've got Australian companies who are also investing there. Currently, as we are speaking, we've got forums from Canada Investment Forum, which was done last week. We also have got a Germany chamber, which we also had meetings last week. However, it's very important to listen to each and every investor, because each and every investor is unique, and it's critical to resolve each and every investor's issue. It's an issue, but I would really request the investor to go to ZIDA. If it is to do with mining, straight to go to Ministry of Mines. If it is to do with us, we can also give guidance on the way, how the problem can be resolved. But yes, there's that perception. I agree with you. I think with that, I think the others will just comments. I think on the lithium issues, the ores, sure, there was, 2 years ago, there was a rush on the exportation of lithium raw ore. And the government made a deliberate policy to say you can only export when it is in concentrate form. And almost now, after about 2 years, we've got about 5 large projects which are exporting lithium concentrates. But now, we are working with government as Chamber of Mines and our members so that they produce lithium sulfate in agreed period, 1 year to 2 years. So it's a roadmap where we are working. We think, I think that was the question, we think it's working because we're employing more people. The value of the product which we're exporting, the lithium concentrate, is far much better than the lithium ores which are being exported. So by so doing, we think, yes, it's quite beneficial. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Mbere?
I'll take, I think first of all, we need to, when we're thinking of regionalization of these industries, we must look at mapping the value chains and leveraging on each country's strengths. So, in mapping, you look at the skills, you look at the infrastructure, you look at what would be required to actually get this into a business, into the business sense to be profitable. Once you've done that, you can then look at how much it's going to cost, and then you have the different countries or the countries that are involved to actually invest in this. And perhaps a regional holdco, I don't know. I mean, it's something that to think about. And then when you then, all the countries will be invested in making sure that this is successful, because at the end of the day, you will have the dividend going to the different countries, and you will also have the value chain, the corridors, because all these, as it moves from the refinery to export, there will be the corridors that benefit and the communities that benefit along those ways. So it would be important to actually map all of that properly and come up with different models that would work and will be supported by the countries that are actually involved in these sort of SEZs.
Thank you very much.
So profit sharing, as the gentleman was saying, may actually work.
Okay. Right. I'm just going to give Zambia and Tanzania 2 minutes each before we close the session. Tanzania is planning to start.
Okay, thank you. The gentleman asked about the Julius Nyerere hydropower. Yeah, it's true. The power that's being that will be produced from this project, the 2.15 gigawatt, is a lot of power. It cannot be absorbed in the current grid. So the government, as phase one, they put aside about 4.2 trillion shillings to upgrade and modernize the existing national grid. And you know, this project has got 9 turbines. So what we are doing is, and each turbine is capable of producing 235 megawatts. So what we are doing, after certain modernization, we kickstart like one. We started with one, we are put on the second, and now the third. So 3 are running currently, while the upgrade of the grid is going on. Until when we finish, and we are capable of transmitting and distributing all the power, all the 9 turbines will be up and running. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sokwani, your last 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mchwampaka, for allaying what's a huge concern for us, which is power, and we are really looking to cooperation with Tanzania and our partners in the region to do things like what we've seen our colleagues in Zimbabwe doing. We're doing the same. Our members are also working actively with government and external financiers to avail power, not just to the members themselves, but to the wider industry and community as well. But I think in closing, and this discussion around collaboration really has to do with the fact that we've kind of written all this stuff down before. The Africa Mining Vision covers all of these things. And what is lacking, I think, are fora where the policymakers can meet, compare notes, and see what's working and what's not. So within our sub-region, under SADC, the protocol which Dr. Mbere spoke of hasn't really been active over the last few years. The SADC Council of Mining Ministers hasn't been meeting. SADC has been a trade ministry-led institution. So as a result, if you look at, ease of business doing rankings, those seem to be the key performance metrics, as opposed to attracting capital into mining and effecting growth therefrom. So one of the things that we're looking to do as a region, and which we really must all push for as private sector from here on out, is that we need that structure in place so that we can begin to, have honest conversations about what's working and what's not, as opposed to perhaps, being reactive, as pointed out earlier, or perception-driven. This is what Zambia has been trying to do through the PPDF framework. And like I said, the discussions can be frank and abrasive sometimes, but what you get at the end of the day is something that is a win for everybody around the table. Thanks.
Thank you. That is always been my mission, to get the ministers to come together so that we can engage with them from a private sector point of view. And that's a difficult task. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this. I know we've 15 minutes over our 1 hour, but thank you for your patience and listening, and thank you for participating in this panel discussion. Thank you.